with Amber and Ian. And I'd like at first to just tell everyone a little bit about ourselves. So, Ian, do you want to start? Oh, I'll wait till you're done.
You start.
I'll start. I own the S3 agency. We're a full-service creative agency, and automotive is one of our specialties. So it's great to be here today.
I'm Ian Beavis. I'm with AMCI Global. We work with pretty much every OEM. We specialise in the auto industry. We do vehicle testing, we do training, and we do experiential. We basically do everything in the marketing sphere except advertising.
Hi there. Ooh, this one definitely works. My name is Amber Quist. I am the CMO of Silvercar. Just by quick show of hands, anybody familiar with Silvercar here? Okay, good. So Silvercar, we have actually three distinct business units that we operate now. We were fully acquired by Audi in 2017. We started with a simple idea to disrupt the nascent car rental industry and to simplify it using technology. And we've kind of spun from there and also operate a product called Dealerware that we sell into dealerships. And just last year, we also launched the Audi Select subscription model as part of our first Audi branded product that's in the market now. So thank you for having me.
Great. So we're here to talk a little bit about automotive and product innovation and consumer education, and whether or not we can get people to adopt the things that we're putting out there. When Ian and I first spoke, I said, oh, I know your company because years ago we did your branding and we did your logo, which is a manual transmission 6-speed. And his response to me,
Yeah, well, a 6-speed manual transmission is referred to as a millennial anti-theft device these days. I actually drive a 6-speed car, and at least once a month at valet parking, the valet looks at me and goes, not happening, you better drive it there.
So you know, the whole idea of how we embrace driving your cars and their purpose in our lives is changing. It's changing with newer generations. It's changing with life use cases. Obviously, what you're doing is a very significant change. And how are you communicating that? How are you getting something complex like Silvercar that you feel you have to explain to a room full of people who are in the industry? How do we get consumers to adopt that, and dealers?
Yeah, so it's a big question. I'll start first with maybe our recent product, which is Audi Select. So I think that we all, as consumers, know that our consumer behaviors are changing and we have different expectations of brands today than we've ever had before. And, you know, we want things on demand. We want to pay for only what we use. And so Silvercar recognized that with Audi, and we aren't certainly not the first to market in the subscription space. So we have, in some cases, I think that when you're introducing new technology, can be advantages to that. There's some education that already existed out there in applying the subscription model to the world of transportation. And so in terms of adoption, there's a couple things that I think we are looking at, and it's really about, involving the dealerships first. And so we've made a big effort to have them be partners in this. We're live in Dallas only, so we're in a single market. And we have relied heavily on that relationship to help sell into the consumer base there as well. So, you know, we do a lot of traditional forms of advertising at point of launch, but we also look at it in terms of an ecosystem. So in terms of adoption, a lot of early customers are people that also have experienced Silvercar as well. So there was a little bit of cross-marketing effort that happened there also.
Is there an opportunity, I mean, subscription in terms of having partial use of a car or, you know, different cars instead of one car? Can we do that with technology? Is there a way to give people just the technology they want to subscribe to in a car versus the whole gamut and having them pay for everything they don't want?
It's limited probably to the entertainment area, but, you know, because most of the, you've got several layers of technology in a car, and so the only real subscription piece to it at the moment that I know of is in the entertainment area. The cars have got loaded up with technology. Interesting statistic is that if you've got a 5-year-old car and you're trading it in at the moment, the new car that you're getting has anywhere between 40 and 60% more technology than the car you're trading in. And about half of that is sort of hidden. It's stuff that you need to know about, but you don't even know it's there unless someone tells you. It's a bit of a problem for the industry, frankly.
Oh, it's definitely, I've worked with BMW for over the past 20 years, and I drive a BMW, and I don't use half the tech features in there. So, you know, when you take delivery of your car, no one wants to sit down and go through all the tech. So how do we get people to be more aware of and care about it?
Well, there's a couple of things. One thing that the problem that the industry is now having, of course, is affordability. People are getting pushed. The reason the subscription services and so on is there is an affordability element to this, not wanting to pay for more than you need and not being able to pay more. But this affordability issue is being driven a lot by product, by all this technology that's coming into the cars. Either it's being legislated or it's seen to be a good idea. A lot of it being safety systems, none of which are cheap. And while people today, 95% of their activity is online, to search through the vehicle, there is very little online that truly helps you understand the value of the safety systems. Frankly, it's a real issue because if you really need to physically experience the product or some better demonstration of it, like AR or VR, because to physically do it, to experience the safety system would put someone in peril. So our business, it's a really big deal. But if you as a consumer have gone online, you've seen the price of the car, and you're going to go into the dealer and you're going to cut the deal, if you don't know the true value of what is in that car, the dealer is at an enormous disadvantage, and you get into this whole, how much money am I going to get off, and off I go. So this is an imperative for the industry to somehow change this situation, to get people to physically experience the product and give that opportunity, that human interaction, that moment of magic, to help explain and help them understand and be frankly excited about the opportunity that all of these features and technologies have. It's a real challenge, before sale and after.
Well, yeah, for sure. Okay.
I just wanted to jump in there. So you talking about sort of experiential. I think as we look at involvement in the dealerships, we really have started to see a shift, I think, in dealerships becoming more product experts. We know that consumers do most of their research online today, so they're 80% informed before they ever even enter a dealership. And so really it sort of changes the profile on who you hire. Today, the salesperson looks a little bit different than they may have looked in the past.
Absolutely.
And I think then furthermore, you asked, how do we get customers to care? And I would sort of back up and say, are we actually developing tech for tech's sake, or are we developing technology that actually solves a real problem? Customers care when you solve a need that exists, not necessarily create a problem that isn't there. And so I think that's important in sort of on the manufacturer side, that we are thinking about what are the most important problems that we actually need to solve, and we're not just creating technology for technology's sake.
Yeah, well, to that point, an interesting one is lane departure warning. We've done some research on this, and one of the fascinating things is if the person is not shown at delivery what lane departure warning is actually doing and how they have to operate it, they will turn it off.
Yeah.
Yet it's probably one of the best features in a modern car. Very early on, backup cameras, which became mandatory, but people would say, I don't need to pay for $250 for a backup camera, I can look over my shoulder, until they actually experience one, and they'll never go back. So, and it's very difficult, no matter how good you are online, to actually give the person that true experience. You really do have to do it firsthand.
When you were talking about how the technology changes from 5 years ago to now, I mean, I don't know anybody that has a phone from 5 years ago. So, it's monumental. It's very difficult for manufacturers to figure out what isn't going to be easily replaced, right? Why would you ever pay for a GPS system now, right? But it is built into cars that people are still paying for. How do we kind of try to game the system and see the things that will be very special that only we can offer as automotive?
Oh, that's a huge challenge. I think we're going to see there's going to be more of a discussion about this with autonomy, which Audi's very, very up in the lead on autonomy. But so much of the technology behind autonomy is going to always be unbranded, and it's going to be somewhat undifferentiated. There's going to be a base level of activity on autonomy, and then you're going to have this overlay for each of the brands. So there is an opportunity to brand some of these technologies, but I think it's only a little bit. Everyone's going to tune their vehicles slightly differently. They're going to do certain things, but the basic safety levels are going to be very, very similar. And the expense is going to have to be spread over a multitude of auto companies. I think when you've got a company as large as the VW Group, the largest, wanting to team up with other people tells you the money involved in here before you're ever going to see any return is enormous. And so much of it's undifferentiated.
Yeah, it's a really interesting time, I think, right? Because as someone who loves to drive, there's never been a better opportunity to buy any car. Pretty much is amazing these days. It's just what do you like best. But we're seeing, some generational changes of how people view cars and what their role is in our society. What are the innovative things, and it doesn't have to be technology, that can really help people have that joy? Is that what people will prize and what they will pay more for? What are some things like that you can think of or that you think should be happening?
I think from the Audi perspective, we're really looking at, we know that the landscape is changing, right? All OEMs have this challenge in front of them to look at new mobility solutions. And so we're really focused on, no matter where you are, you have access to an Audi, whether you're traveling, whether you are, in an urban area, whether you, no matter where you are, you have access. So, and I think the other point of access is also having the opportunity to have fractional ownership and flexibility within that model. So as we look at sort of building that ecosystem, things like subscription, that might in the future be something that's offered at the F&I desk. You might go in and purchase an e-tron and want to have the experience with an electric vehicle, but in order to sort of get over the hump and instill electric confidence, you might also have the need to drive much further than maybe the infrastructure supports today. And so instead of taking your e-tron on that long vacation, you might have a subscription-based model through the F&I desk that allows you to have a combustion experience that allows you to travel those miles.
That's a great point, right? People are so afraid of electric vehicles not supporting their needs, and the average miles that we drive every day is 30, right?
Yeah.
So that is a great, I think, way to get the emotion past it.
Yeah.
Because you've got like a security blanket.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And I think you had mentioned to me when we were speaking earlier, the idea of helping dealers to bridge gaps, from lease to lease, or, rather than people going to another marque by having Select available to let people have a couple months of pretty much almost any Audi they want to drive.
Yeah, I think that's been what's interesting about the Select is that, we certainly launched it with the idea that subscription-based model related to transportation allows people flexibility to change models. And what we're learning is that, some people are certainly flipping cars on a regular basis, but other people are using it to bridge between leases. Other people are using it to test drive a specific vehicle before purchase. So it has, we launched Select in 6 months. It was concept to launch in 6 months, which is pretty impressive feat for an OEM, which was part of the reason that the acquisition happened for Silvercar to be able to move nimbly. But we launched with a minimum viable product, and we're learning and kind of iterating based on the insights that we're gaining.
Cars, if you take education out, cars are the second most expensive purchases we generally make, or really nice jewelry. And, people are supposed to be really excited about it. They're supposed to be doing something that makes them feel great about it. And when we drive off the lot, we always hear, oh, you've lost, fill in the blank number of thousands of dollars. But now with things like Tesla, where they, basically download all new things to your car, suddenly you have a car that's worth more, or at least seems like a better car than when you bought it. What does that mean?
Oh, connectivity. 5G, is a game changer in the industry. Tesla's got to jump on everyone with their downloading, and it's really. I've got several friends with Teslas, and they're absolutely enamored with the technology. I have no idea what they have no idea about the car, but that's beside the point. But 5G is going to be a tremendous opportunity for the industry, and it's a tremendous way also for the OEMs for the first time to have some sort of direct connection with their customers. And it's not to eliminate the dealer from the process, but today, other than a recall, a manufacturer very rarely has a direct connection to a customer. With 5G connectivity in the car, they will be able to have a positive connection to the customer and enhance their enjoyment. And frankly, to the point that was made earlier, to some degree of tailoring of the car. It's going to help the brands a lot. It's going to help loyalty. I think Silvercar is brilliant in terms of enhancing the loyalty for Audi. I'm just surprised that more haven't got onto that boat, but I don't wish you to. But no, connectivity and the ability to download and upgrade. Also for recalls, so much of what's going on in the car now is electronic, and as it gets more to EVs, it's going to even be more so. So recalls or anything that's going to happen to the car is going to be electronically done. You don't have to take it into the dealership. Just imagine, having to wait for parts and whatever else. You can just download it, change the software. It's done overnight, and you don't even have to worry about it. It's going to be wonderful for customer experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tesla is a great example of, I think one of your questions earlier was, what do OEMs do in the future to continue to stay relevant in terms of customer adoption of technology? And I think Tesla is a prime example of, they operate as a software company, essentially. And so the more and more mindset that we can have related to how do we release products faster, from an MVP, most viable product state, and test and learn, then the more that more insights we gain, the better products we create that do address needs of our customers, and the more product adoption that we have moving forward.
Yeah, Tesla started out as a software company. It was the metal bending that got them sort of messed up.
Yeah.
So the elephant in the room, right? Autonomous vehicles. Mm-hmm. What are your feelings on that? When is that really going to happen?
Well, it's happening. But here's the thing. You're going to see level 4 autonomy within the next couple of years in geo-fenced areas and at low speeds, those sorts of things. But, the day of you getting into your Audi and, hopping into the driveway and, pressing a button and it takes you to work is quite some time away. Not from necessarily a technological standpoint, but a legal standpoint. There's a myriad of steps to be made there. Certainly the low speed activities with autonomy, they're very close. And frankly, lane departure, automatic collision avoidance, those sorts of things, they are forms of autonomy. So we do have levels. The problem we've got is that we have someone who will remain nameless, starting with T, had a thing called autopilot, and everyone thinks, my God, we've got full autonomy out there, and we haven't. And you have the impression of full autonomy with really stupid people behind the wheel doing stupid things that puts everyone backwards.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to add in terms of that. I mean, I will say that levels of autonomy, we are getting used to this already today. I was in a vehicle the other day, took my hands off the wheel, it parallel parked itself, kind of scared me. But, even just sitting in traffic the other day and sitting still, motorcycle passes, and all of a sudden the, seatbelt tightens on you. There are lots of things that exist today that are, without maybe even us realizing it, we're getting used to autonomous features. But everything you say, I mean, nobody really knows how close we will be to sitting in autonomous vehicles. I hope that my children, who are 4 and 6, won't be behind the wheel themselves. I do hope that there are more autonomy when they actually start driving, but I think we don't know. I do think the technology, to your point, will be here faster than some of the regulatory and infrastructure things that have to take place for us.
It's very unusual for a regulator to decide to not get involved. That tells you they have no clue what's going on, because they love to get their hands in this stuff.
Yeah. Well, one place that they're definitely involved in is the whole dealer model and how we're buying cars, right? Consumers really want to go direct for everything, right? Even for Invisaligns, instead of going through an orthodontist, now they can just go to Smile Direct and be their own orthodontist, basically. Yeah. When do we think that will happen? Will that happen? How will the role of the dealer change?
Well, I think that the challenge is consumers will, it's like water going down a hill. Consumers will go where they need to go to get what they need in the way they need it. A dealer can be in that process if he's adding value and not disrupting or causing a problem. And so we work with a lot of dealer groups, and what goes on, your time when you're buying a car, when you're online or when you're in the dealership looking at the car, that's your time. And you spend as much time doing that as you want. What you don't want is that from the moment you say yes, to be screwed around for 45 minutes to 2.5 hours on all paperwork and bullshit. So in order for the dealers and anyone to remain relevant, they have to somehow compress that, make it as pain-free as possible, and add value to the process. Teaching the person about the car or something. And then when the delivery comes on, when you're picking up the car, you have the choice of how much time you want to spend on that, so don't make that hard. So it's taking friction out of the system. And I don't know that there's, and I'm not defending the current status quo, because I will tell you that, Tesla's got some real problems with their Model 2, because, the Model 3 has put such stress on their system that they've got some serious issues going on there. So there isn't one answer that fits all. But I think you've got to, if you want to be relevant, you have to reduce friction for the consumer. And how you do that is, you don't need a franchise system or not, or have a franchise. That's not the issue. It's how you reduce friction.
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely see the future for dealerships being very relevant and important to the whole mobility ecosystem. So there's a view that we have that is really seeing dealerships as mobility hubs, and as time goes on, being able to operate more mobility as service options out of the dealership, which is why subscription in Dallas today, we work very closely with our dealerships there, and more of the operational things that we operate today as Silvercar are shifting to a shared operational model between the dealers and Silvercar. So certainly see as time moves on, and, the reality too, even with autonomous vehicles, people will still buy cars. We know that there's, a slowdown in that, but we still believe that there will be an ownership model in the future too.
What about privacy issues, right? We're afraid of privacy from Alexa and from every smart thing that we have. What about as cars get
And
smarter?
they are listening. It is an issue, and that's an issue that the industry is confronting. And the other part of the problem that the industry has is they've got model cycles that are very long, and there's hardened systems inside the car that have different protocols. So a car is a very complicated vehicle, and adding voice and all of these other things to it from industries that are very fast moving, because these things get replaced much more often than a car. The average car on the road in the United States is 11.4 years old. That's the average. That's an antique. That's 7 phones.
Yeah, no one's got their phone.
So there are challenges to it, but voice is very important, and it is interesting. Voice has been a huge challenge for cars. It's one thing to stand here and scream into Alexa. It's another thing to be going at 60 miles down the road in a nice sports car that's got a lot of ambient noise and trying to and with an Australian accent and try and make the bloody thing understand you. It's impossible.
I'd love to have anyone who has questions have access to our very esteemed panel guests here, so please go ahead and let anyone know. No? In the meantime, we have one?
Oh, there's one there and there.
It is hard to see. It's blinding.
Hi, I'm Sue Lynn Valine with Nexstar Media Group, and I was thinking about the Audi experience, and how are you executing, or what are you actually seeing as far as marketing? Who is this appealing to? Is there a type of, persona that you're seeing is gravitating towards that?
Yeah, I mean, we, from a demographic standpoint, definitely see more males than females today in the Select experience. On the Silvercar side, on the rental side, that's more balanced. There was a perception early on when I first came to the company 2 years ago that we were more like 80% male, 20% female, but the reality that we actually just a recent customer study that females are just as active as males are in the research and purchase phase of renting a car, which is why we announced a Peg-Parago partnership last year to outfit all of our vehicles with car seats to start to broaden the appeal to the family and female travelers. So, but on the Select side, on the subscription side, definitely more dominated on the male. And then, as you would imagine, the entry point is $14.95 a month, so that's gonna obviously, going to self-select, exactly. But we did just announce on Tuesday that we have a new tier to that, so we have a $9.95 offer that's going to be sort of a more limited selection in models. So we're testing sort of pricing and product packaging as well.
And Amber, am I wrong? Does that include insurance?
That does include insurance,
Amazing.
2 flips a month, and concierge delivery, and also Silvercar days. So when you part of this too, I mean, we were talking earlier just about the value equation has really changed for customers today, right? So people value convenience, they value their time, and they value simplicity. that is a little bit of a challenge to educate people because they're used to, from what they're used to. So from my lease only costs today $695, but when you start to add up all the different features, the value that you get out of the subscription-based model actually starts to make more sense for certain scenarios.
Well, it makes sense in so many other things, right?
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Pat Hill. I'm with Jackson Spalding. I have a question for all three panelists. And it goes back to something Ian said about product cycle and the time it takes to develop a new vehicle. Why have none of the manufacturers gone after Tesla in a bigger, faster way? Tesla has been doing this now for several years, has been very successful, yet none of the major OEMs or even minor OEMs have been able to even try to replicate it. Why is that?
There's a couple of reasons for it. First of all, the other OEMs have to make money for a living. And it's as successful as Tesla has been, it's basically been a cash incinerator, except for a few quarters. I think there's a couple of things. One is, let's face it, the electric cars we've got coming, they wouldn't be happening like they are if it wasn't for Tesla. And so from Elon's standpoint, he succeeded. That said, I think there was some reticence about, really is the world ready for electric cars? He started at the top end with people who are interested in technology paying $100,000 for cars. So that's a very rarefied market. And frankly, the people that were in that market, they're doing just fine, thank you very much. So it's taken a while to take hold. I think that sort of the wake-up moment for some people in the industry was when Tesla was the biggest selling luxury car in California at one point, and like, oops. Now, I would also say that depends on how you define luxury, because I would say to you with respect that it's a $100,000 car with a Honda Accord interior. It's not a luxury car as I would define one if you compare it to an I-Pace Jaguar. So I think there was reticence, there's a lot of investment, and there's shareholders and there's always lots of research. And I don't think Elon did a lot of research. I think he said, hell, I'm going to go and do it. So there's lots of inertia. Every industry needs a disruptor. I think he's done a perfectly good job. I think you've got Rivian out there disrupting in the pickup truck area. But you've now got this relentless machine of all these other manufacturers coming down this path with significant investments in infrastructure, because that really is a big part of the problem. And moving the price down will require government subsidies. So I think he's got a head start, but it's hard to stay out in front. It's going to be very hard. Again, just look at these very, very large car companies having to join forces to develop this technology. I don't believe there is an OEM on the planet that would find that what Tesla has as autopilot is acceptable for a consumer. You don't use your consumers as guinea pigs. And I just don't think, and by the way, no one's going to sue Tesla, but they'll sue the Volkswagen Group back to the Stone Age. So there's a lot more risk. I don't have an opinion on that at all.
No, not at all. Prius was doing a pretty good job before Tesla came along, and it took a while for that to happen. And so now we're seeing Rivian, we're seeing others. All the major OEMs are going after it. I think, to your point, they have to uphold their level of branding and dealer commitment and everything. With that, it's easy, I don't say it's easy, but you can certainly start from scratch and take on legislators and just go out and sell direct and do all these things that OEMs can't really do right now. So I think that was probably part of it.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add. I think they hit all the key points: profitability, accountability.
We have a saying in Australia that today you're an ostrich and tomorrow you're a feather duster. And Tesla Model X and Model S sales are collapsing. He hasn't got a next generation of either of those coming. Model 3 is starting to sell outside the United States and in Europe and so on, which is great. He keeps teasing Model Y. When? He's got some major issues coming around, and this is a very capital intensive business, and he's got some real stress and strains there. So we'll see where it goes.
I'm Jim Ehrlich with GFK Auto. Had a question based on a lot of what you said. Amber, you had mentioned your 4 and 6 year olds might not ever drive or might not need to. If we think about, I'm not a doomsday sayer that car industry is going to go away. People need to move shit. We all agree. But Ian, you had mentioned car ownership. These days, cars are over 10 years old. So at what point do we actually see autonomous function commoditizing auto ownership where the appeal or the need that's driven into getting the next car, does it put us out of work? Do we start moving towards an airline model where, you know, who cares what car you're in as long as the service is there?
Oh God, I hope I'm dead. No, I think there is, you know, there's always been a body of the population that aren't that interested in cars and get them as an appliance. So that's going to exist, and it'll grow and ebb and flow. I think in terms of autonomy, you're going to see autonomy turn up in places that we don't talk about much. Trucks, delivery vans, in small geofenced areas, those sorts of areas. Much faster than I think, you know, you're going to see it in passenger cars and general usage vehicles. I think there's still a lot of opportunity for branding there. There was a great comment made the other day. You know, everyone tries to talk about the death of the car because you don't use it 96% of the time. You know, why would you have one? Well, I use a toothbrush twice a day. Why the bloody hell would I give it to someone else to use when I'm not using it? I still want my toothbrush, so there'll still be that going on. So I do think that there's still going to be some desire for car ownership. I think what's going to happen, though, is when you've got a household with, say, 3 cars or 2 cars, they might go back to 1. You'll see those different models, and they will vary by geographic area, and they'll vary by life stage. You know, when you start to have a family, you seem to gather more crap than creation, and you need that hauler. You don't necessarily want a subscription service and be swapping all that crap out of the car to your baby seat thing. So there's lots of permutations of this. I think if you're in the research business, you've got a target-rich environment out there to find out what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I think that brand has probably never been more important. When the gentleman from Mazda was talking about how they want to be their fans' #1 brand, not #1 automotive brand, but #1 brand, that's a high aspiration, but I think it is something, especially if we're going to go back to single-car households, that we want to be the one they choose, and it's going to be more than just because we're a car.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
Denise and panel, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.